Which computer should you buy? The M3 MacBook Air or the newer M3 Pro and M3 Max MacBook Pros? Let's talk about it. So, you have been looking for a new Mac and you're still undecided which computer should you buy? The M3 MacBook Air or the M3 Pro or M3 Max MacBook Pros? And there's even the M3 MacBook Pro. So, yes, which of these computers should you buy? Are you looking for a portable machine? Are you looking for a pro machine? And what are your uses for these computers? All of these factors enter in this decision. So, the M3 MacBook Air has been launched less than 1 month ago, and it came to change up the lineup of the MacBook. Yes, now we have the complete MacBook lineup with the M3 chip. This is important because the M3 chip has been not as much revolutionary in terms of performance, but is more in efficiency. So this means that the M3 MacBook Air, the 15-inch and 13-inch, now have gotten an efficiency boost when compared to the MacBook Pros. Yes, the strong point of the M3's chip has been, of course, efficiency and GPU power. Two areas where the MacBook Air was lacking. While the MacBook Pro, especially the M3 Pro and M3 Max machines, they have tons of GPU performance, tons of CPU performance, and still are very, very efficient. But they are super expensive. And then there's the M3 MacBook Pro. This is an interesting one because it has the same characteristics as the MacBook Pros with the M3 Pro and M3 Max, or at least 95% of the same features and hardware, but it features the M3 chip. And here lies a tough decision. Should you buy a 15-inch M3 MacBook Air or the 14-inch M3 MacBook Pro? Well, it's not easy because, again, these two machines are very, very close. And they are close in everything, in price and almost in performance. But you have different choices. The M3 MacBook Air 15-inch has a bigger display, a bigger chassis, and bigger speakers. But the 14-inch MacBook Pro has better speakers, a smaller display, but a better display, and, in my opinion, has way better form factor. Because, again, it's only 1 inch smaller in terms of the diagonal display size, but it's much more portable in terms of overall size. It's thicker, yes, way thicker and way more voluminous in terms of thickness than the MacBook Air, but at the end of the day, what is the biggest constraint in your backpack? The thickness of the computer or the size of the overall machine? I think that the size is the most important part of a portable computer. And the 14-inch is still an amazing machine with top-notch performance. So, tough decision there. But again, we need to take a step back and look at the differences between the MacBook Air lineup and the MacBook Pro lineup. I've used the M2 MacBook Air and the M2 MacBook Air 15-inch. These two machines are incredible computers. And I think that the performance is underrated because they are still very, very powerful computers, but people think because they are a base model that they are not powerful enough and they are only a portable machine. Trust me, they are not. For most people, I do still believe that the M1 MacBook Air is completely overkill. But here's the thing, the M1 MacBook Air does not have the new M2 and M3 MacBook Air design. While the MacBook Pros, they feature the same design since the M1 Pro and M1 Max generation. This is the best computer and the best design in the computer ever, in my opinion. While the MacBook Air does feature the same design as the M2 MacBook Air, this is a very portable and very, very beautiful design that I think it's very, very functional also. So, at the end of the day, in terms of design, the big differences are, of course, the thickness of these computers. The M3 Pro, the M3 Max, and the M3 MacBook Pros, well, they are all very, very thick. Yes, they are thick because they need to have better cooling, and they do have better cooling. They need to have better space for the speakers, for the battery that is also bigger, and the display. Everything is just simply bigger and bulkier on the MacBook Pros. But again, you pay more, you get more. While the MacBook Airs, they have a more thin and portable design. The 13-inch, because the 15-inch is a very thin, but a very long and thin slab of aluminum. So if your constraint is the vertical or the horizontal size of the computer, not the thickness of the computer, then the 15-inch MacBook Air might be too big for you. But if you want a big laptop that is super light and thin to carry around on your backpack, for you to just go to university on foot, and you don't really care about the size, you just really care about the weight, and you want the biggest display possible, then the 15-inch is actually a great option. But the differences between the MacBook Pros and the MacBook Airs are noticeable not just in the design, but also on the I/O available. The MacBook Pro also has more I/O than the MacBook Air. The MacBook Pro features 3 USB-C ports, while the MacBook Air only features 2. This is a big thing for most people because most people want to use, I don't know, a hub, and then they want to use a mouse or a pen drive or something that occupies the second USB-C port. You can be charging something, you can be using a USB mic, I don't care. If you are using 2 accessories, you're done. You don't have any more ports on the MacBook Air. And this is good because this year, or at least last year when Apple released the new design for the MacBook Air, they added MagSafe. MagSafe is now present between the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro lineup. All of the Apple Silicon computers now feature MagSafe. And MagSafe frees up a USB-C port. This is very, very important because it will give you actually one more USB-C port. Before, you would be charging and you only have one USB-C port. That's pretty bad. Trust me, that's pretty bad. If you wanted to connect a mouse and an external keyboard, you're done. An external SSD and something else, you're done. No way you will recover from that. Then you need to deal with the factor that the 15-inch price is really close to the 14-inch MacBook Pro. And here lies the problem, because Apple created this ladder of upgrades on the lineup of MacBook Pros. And now buying a 15-inch MacBook Air does not seem as good of a deal as it could be if you do not look at the M3 14-inch, because the M3 14-inch has better displays, better speakers, and the overall better design in my opinion. Yes, it's less portable, or at least less thin, but in my opinion, the overall size and shape, it's still very, very portable, and the performance you get out of it, the display, the speakers, is just unmatched by the MacBook Air. So I do believe it's actually worth to pay the extra price for the 14-inch MacBook Pro. But then you want to upgrade. You just get 512 gigabytes of storage, you just get 8 gigabytes of RAM. You want to put at least 16 gigabytes of RAM to future-proof of machine. Then you do it, and you are still really, really close to the 14-inch with the M3 Pro. This is the big conundrum on the MacBook lineup. Apple created a ladder of upgrades that is very, very tough to fight. You gotta decide, do I want the base model or do I want to upgrade for a more expensive machine? That's the overall choice, because upgrading a machine in this lineup is just not worth it. You enter a new level of price that is so expensive to upgrade the SSDs, the RAM, that you actually find that it's more worth to go over to the next model, to the more expensive model, the MacBook Pros, and pay the extra price. So here's my big tip of this video. If you are looking to buy a MacBook Air, either is the M2 or the M3, you need to be very, very careful. You can only upgrade one part of the computer. So you should only upgrade, in my opinion, the RAM, not the storage. The storage, you can buy external storage if you need it later, but if you are looking for a portable machine that just want to do web browsing, documenting, and university work, or at least work in general on the web, then you don't need that much storage. 256 will be enough for you. And if you want to do some video editing, some photo editing that requires more space on your computer, then you should buy an external SSD. They are cheap. They cost you like $70. You can find them for $70, and they will give you an extra 1 terabyte of storage externally. Super fast. You can find the Samsung T7, the T9, whatever. You can find them at a cool price on Amazon, and they will be way more than you actually need. You'll be able to edit videos, photos, an external drive, and you will save tons of money on space, because space on Apple is super expensive. Upgrading the SSDs on Apple's website is prohibitively expensive. So you should not upgrade your machine twice. Only upgrade the RAM, in my opinion, because you cannot do it after. So if you are looking for the MacBook Air, then I would say buy the base model and then give it an extra RAM upgrade, because then it's actually more worth it to jump over to the MacBook Pros. And it's only like $350, $400 between the 15-inch MacBook Air base model and the base model 14-inch with the M3. So here's the thing. If you upgrade more than one thing on the MacBook Air, it's suddenly not worth to do so. So you can see the conundrum now. If you want to upgrade the 15-inch MacBook Air further than the base model, you are now in the 14-inch M3 MacBook Pro territory, which has better design and better I/O. So the differences between the MacBook Air lineup and the MacBook Pro lineup are very, very apparent, and the price differences are made so that if you start upgrading the MacBook Air lineup, you will certainly jump into MacBook Pro territory. And that's something you need to analyze. Do I need a MacBook Pro? Or do I simply need a MacBook Air? Well, that's a tough choice. You gotta answer yourself. The MacBook Air also has a worse display than the MacBook Pro. The MacBook Air features an LCD display. You either have a 13-inch option or a 15-inch option, while the MacBook Pros, they have two sizes also. The 14-inch MacBook Pro that features 2 or 3 chip options actually. You feature the M3, you feature the M3 Pro and the M3 Max, while the 16-inch, the second size of the MacBook Pro lineup, this computer right here, my beast of a machine, it's huge, a very big, bright display, one of the best laptops Apple has ever made. This machine only features the M3 Pro or the M3 Max and starts extremely expensive at $2,500 or $2,400. So if you want a big laptop but you don't have the money to spend on the 16-inch machine, then your only option would be the 15-inch MacBook Air. That's the bigger computer on the lineup that is actually a little bit more cheap. It starts around $1,200, $1,250, I'm not sure. So that machine would be the better option if you want the biggest display possible on a cheap laptop. But then, what are the differences between the displays on the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro, as you were telling me? Well, simple. Like I was telling you, the MacBook Air features an LCD display, while the MacBook Pro features a mini LED display. The difference is quite simple. The LCD display does have one huge backlight behind the pixels, while the mini LED display has several dimming zones or several backlights behind the pixels. What this means is better contrast ratios, better black reproduction, and better colors in general. So the mini LED displays will be closer to OLED displays than LCDs are. So if you are watching a movie on a mini LED display, you will find that it simply looks amazing. If it's HDR capable, it will look insane. And of course, mini LEDs are also brighter and can dim zones that are actually black. So the contrast ratio becomes better. The colors pop more. They become more saturated because you can create better blacks. Remember that contrast ratio is controlled by the amount of brightness you have on your screen and of course, the amount of black screen you have. So if your blacks are almost complete darkness, your contrast ratio will be insane. So mini LED displays, especially on these MacBook Pros, are very, very well tuned and they are one of the best in the business. Almost no blooming, only like in extreme cases you can find it, but these mini LED displays are so good, the color reproduction is insane, the contrast ratio is superb, and movies here, everything here looks insane, and in my opinion, much, much better than the MacBook Air. Totally worth the extra money just for this display, and on top of that you get better I/O and a better design with better thermals in my opinion. So I think that it is actually quite obvious that the MacBook Pro is a better machine. It's a better value overall than the MacBook Airs. Unless you are spending like only base model prices on the MacBook Airs, you actually can see that the MacBook Pros become the better option, especially if you go for refurbished on these MacBook Pros, because you can find amazing deals on an M2 Pro and an M2 Max. But moving on, the MacBook Air also features an LCD display, like I was telling you, 13-inch and 15-inch options. This has only a peak brightness of 500 nits, while the MacBook Pro has a peak brightness of 600 nits. And yes, it's bright. It is bright. It's Retina. It's still amazing. It's still better than most Windows laptops that are not OLED displays, but it's still an LCD display. So if you like to color grade your videos, I would say that the MacBook Pro display is better overall. But don't get me wrong, the LCD display for 95% of people will also be insane. So at the end of the day, what actually matters is how much do you value a mini LED display, a better contrast ratio, better color reproduction, and more saturated greens, blacks, oranges, everything on the MacBook Pros. How much do you value it? $200, $300? Or you don't really notice, you don't really care, and you just want to have a good display, but not the most incredible one. Oh, totally forgot to mention that the MacBook Pro's display is 120 Hz, while the MacBook Air is 60 Hz. So if that's a deal breaker for you, like it is for me, now I cannot live without 120 Hz on every machine that I have, on my iPhone, on my iPad, on my Mac. I cannot simply use 60 Hz now, it just feels buggy, feels slow, it just instantly makes something look obsolete for me. And for me, it's totally worth the extra $200, $300 or even the $1,000 that I paid extra for my MacBook Pro 16-inch. So you need to analyze that, you need to weigh out, do I want to spend more on mini LED with 120 Hz or save some money and get an LCD display. As far as battery life, the MacBook Pro does edge out the MacBook Air a bit. The 15-inch, it's rated for about 20 hours of battery life, 18 to 20 hours of battery life, while all of the 14-inch and 16-inch machines with the MacBook Pros are rated for 18 to 22 hours of battery life. A bit better. And if you put these machines under loads, the MacBook Pro will always perform better because it won't overheat. While the MacBook Air, because it does not have any fan on this interface, on this hardware, if it starts to get too hot, the battery will be less efficient, and so it will last even less than the MacBook Pro. At the end of the day, are you a power user? If you are a power user, definitely buy a MacBook Pro. The battery life will be better, your machine will run cooler, and so all of the components will suffer less wear and tear, and it will last longer. The battery life will also last longer because the battery health will be better for longer. So if you want to have a computer that will actually run hot, a computer that will actually run very intensive tasks for a prolonged period of time, then the MacBook Pro is simply your only option. Because now I'm touching on the performance side, the MacBook Air does feature the M3 chip, and only the M3 chip. You have a binned version and a non-binned version. I would say that the $100 differences depends on what you're actually doing, but again, the differences are on the GPU side, and if you are buying an M3 MacBook Air, it's because you don't really need the GPU that much. If you need very intensive GPU tasks, then just buy a MacBook Pro. So I would say that upgrading the extra $100 will be kind of losing $100, or at least if you have $100 to spend. But I would say put that money towards the RAM, put those $100 and $100 more, and upgrade the RAM to 16 gigabytes. Because again, you won't see that much of a difference between the non-binned and the binned version, and on the MacBook Air, it doesn't actually matter. You can do most of the things that you do. Like I told you in the beginning of this video, the M1 MacBook Air is overkill for most people. I did a review, that would be right there, and this review got insane people saying, oh, the M1 MacBook Air is too old now. It's like 4 years old, it's too old now. What are you saying? The M1 MacBook Air is insane still for most people. You don't really grasp the power of the M1 MacBook Air until you talk to people that have one. People that have an M1 MacBook Air will tell you that it never slows down. They never touch the ceiling of the performance of the computer. And most people that have one, they are just simple, casual users. They like to type documents, write a few texts, PowerPoint, web browsing, streaming video, nothing more. And the M1 MacBook Air is so much more powerful than that. The M1 MacBook Air is the best value computer ever to be created, in my opinion. $600 right now for a computer that is still so powerful, built on aluminum, amazing trackpad, amazing keyboard. But that's a conversation for another video. Now we need to focus on the newer machines, the M3 MacBook Air and the M3 MacBook Pro with the M3 Pro and M3 Max. Why would you buy an M3 Pro and M3 Max? And when will you buy these computers? Well, if you need these computers, you already know, because you are a video editor, a photo editor, or someone that actually needs a high-performance computer. If you are one of these three cases, then buy a MacBook Pro. And in this case, I would advise you to go for the M3 Pro, MacBook Pro. Unless you are doing 3D rendering or high-intensive GPU tasks, do not buy the M3 Max. The M3 Max is actually very, very overkill for most people. And like 2.5 years later, this machine is still overkill for what I do. So if you buy an M1 Max or M2 Max or M3 Max, expect it to be extremely powerful, even more than you actually need. So you'll be overspending. Because again, you could have compromised a bit on the performance, you wouldn't notice any difference, and that money would be on your bank account. So analyze. Do I need the GPU side to be extremely powerful with the most amount of RAM possible? Then go for the M3 Max. This machine's performance is insane, one of the best I've ever seen. Super powerful, but also super efficient. You can video edit on the battery side, no need to be plugged in. It's super, super powerful. Unlike the other generations where the M2 Pro and the M1 Pro were about the same CPU performance as the M1 Max and M2 Max, the only differences were on the GPU side. Now, on the M3 family, the M3 Pro is a bit less powerful on the CPU side than the M3 Max. But again, if you are not a complete power user and you just like to code, just like to video edit, the M3 Pro will be just fine. And I think that buying an M3 MacBook Pro is only for those that like the hardware on the MacBook Pros. They love the display, they love the new and improved keyboard and the trackpad, they love the look of this computer, and of course, they like the extra USB-C port, but they don't really care about performance. In that case, the M3 MacBook Pro exists. You should buy the base model in that case. Do not upgrade this machine. Maybe, just maybe upgrade the RAM from 8 to 16 bytes of RAM, but that's something that you only do if you actually really think you need it. So this is for those casual users that like the hardware on the MacBook Pros, the 14-inch and the 16-inch, and don't want to spend too much money on those machines. While with the M3 MacBook Airs, these are great for video editing, great for photo editing, but that's not their main focus. So buy these machines if you do these things casually. If you do these things not very often, you want to do something on university work or edit a video, edit a photo for your family, okay, these machines will do it just fine. But if you are editing videos every single day with a timeline, with time restrictions that actually imply your livelihood, then buy the MacBook Pro. It's better to be safer than sorry. The keyboards and trackpads, they seem about the same and they actually feel about the same. The only differences would be the MacBook Pros that have a bit more tactile keys. The MacBook Airs don't have that bad of a keyboard. No, it's actually pretty good. It's like 90% of the keyboard of the MacBook Pros. But if you do really enjoy the keyboard, go into the store and try it out. It might be worth going for the base model M3 MacBook Pro. Again, like I told you, that computer is for those that want the amazing hardware of the more expensive machines. They don't want to pay the extra money for the performance and the chips. And so Apple made the M3 chip on this machine. So it's actually a great option for those that want this and don't want to spend the extra $1,000. I see why Apple did it, but I cannot be quiet about this. I do notice that Apple is overcharging on the SSD and the RAM side. So I would kind of hope that Apple at least drop these prices to $150, $100, at least for the SSDs, $100, to be fair. People could upgrade their MacBook Airs a bit longer and they could hold on to these machines a bit longer. I don't see the Apple Silicon being the limiting factor on the base model machines on the MacBook Airs. I simply don't. I just think that these machines will be limited by the storage and the RAM they have in like 8 to 10 years. So I would like to see Apple at least making it cheaper for the upgrades. In terms of the webcam, they have the same 1080p camera with the same chip inside, or at least the same base chip, the same M3 cores inside. You won't notice a difference between the cameras on the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pros. What you will notice is the differences on the microphone side. The MacBook Pros feature incredible microphones, almost studio quality microphones, but again, almost. So if you need to do jobs just like this, buy an external microphone. And if you want to do Zoom meetings, well, I think that a MacBook Air microphone will be just fine. As for Touch ID, both of these machines feature it. So, yeah, I don't think it's an issue either way. So, let me know in the comments down below which one of these machines would you buy? The M3 MacBook Airs or the MacBook Pros? Especially the M3 Pro, and the M3 Max. Let me know in the comments down below, because I'm still undecided. Should I recommend the M3 MacBook Air 15-inch? Should I recommend the M3 MacBook Pro 14-inch? Or save some money and buy the M1 MacBook Air? One thing I'm sure though, the M3 MacBook Airs, the M3 MacBook Pros, these are the best MacBooks ever made. And this generation of MacBooks has been incredible since the beginning. Apple Silicon changed the Mac forever. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching, drop a like down below, subscribe to the channel, bye bye.